What advice would you give to other aspiring entrepreneurs?
You've really got to move forward and make stuff happen. Get the MVP out, get your customers and listen and adapt to them. We did more than our competitors. I wasn't smarter. I wasn't better. We did more. We worked twice as much as them.
Mark Pearson.
He's a digital entrepreneur,
Investor and founder of Fuel Ventures.
I wanted something that I thought, if I build this and I open it, a website can be visited by billions of people. Instead of it being a consumer end-to-end with a product, I become a middleman, a platform, a marketplace. And that's really where the business started. So,
welcome back to Decoded. My name's Alfie Whattam, and this is the show where I speak to experts about what it takes to build great teams and companies. Make sure that you click the follow or subscribe button for more great content like this, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. So, Mark, you grew up on a council estate in Liverpool. When you were 26 years old, you founded the website My Voucher Codes with just £300. And then you rapidly built the business over the next few years and eventually sold it for £55 million, about 69 million in USD. That is an insane story, which basically I hope all of my listeners would love to achieve themselves. I know I certainly hope to. What advice would you give to other aspiring entrepreneurs? A lot of people that watch this show, they're startup founders, they're builders, they want to achieve what you've achieved. What advice would you give to them?
firstly, they're my type of people. So that's wonderful, right? That's who I surround myself with in what I do at Fuel. We'll talk about that later, I'm sure. My entrepreneurial journey was very different. And I'll go back a little bit forward from what you've just said. So yeah, I grew up in Liverpool. I left at 18 and I had a job. My first career was very different. I did really badly in school. I was a nightmare in school. I used to be like disciplined so much, nearly got kicked out so much. It was partially to do with my upbringing. I've as I've got older, I've psychologically assessed myself of what happened. And I grew up in a single parent family. There was domestic violence with my mom and stuff like this, right? And it didn't affect me, but of course it did affect me. But I feel like I'm a good, solid person, family guy, business guy. So when I say it didn't affect me, but it did affect me, because I remember in school, I used to be the bad guy, and whether I wanted attention, whether I used to kick off at the teachers, call them F words, like as a kid, that's not acceptable, right? And I used to literally be disciplined for it, and it was awful. And I remember I was just on the wrong track and the wrong path. That's why I tell you that part of the story. And then you end up getting terrible GCSEs, really bad results, like C's, D's, whatever, like useless, right? And literally, I went to the careers lady in school, and there's loads of sheets of paper of what you can do. It's really basic, and hopefully it's got better, right? This, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. There was much less options then. And literally, I wasn't qualified for most of the jobs. It was terrible. I could be a firefighter or I could be a chef. Guess what? I don't like heights, right? So I chose to be a chef, and I trained to be a chef. I went to college. And luckily, I did a student chef competition. I ended up moving to London. My first job was really quite good. I got a job in Claridge's Hotel in Mayfair. But that sounds glamorous and wonderful. I was on £16,000 salary a year, living in London, which doesn't work. Making ends meet, rent costs bloody more than that. And then, I worked there for 2 or 3 years. And that's important for your viewers to understand. I was at the bottom. I didn't make ends meet. I had a job, thank goodness. But every month, that living cost didn't compute. It was literally halfway into the month, you're literally borrowing money from your friends to bloody buy food, which is madness, right? From that point, I was always wanting to be entrepreneurial, but didn't have a clue how to do it. I've got to break out of this rat race. It felt like that, right? And no real progression or opportunity. I did 2 or 3 years there. I went to work for a small startup restaurant, which started to give me a little bit of a view. It had an investor. It was kind of like a mini startup, but it was a physical business. And I was like, this is fascinating. And I worked really hard. And what I realized, by being part of a smaller entity, you could shine. I was part of a big entity, hundreds of chefs in Claridge's, and I was a number. And no one spotted my hard ass work or didn't really appreciate it. And that was really frustrating when you need to progress, right? I'm a hard worker. I think I'm semi-smart. I will apply my energy all in. I'll go all in, right? And it didn't get any appreciation. But in the startup little restaurant, I got appreciation. Customers would rave. We got great reviews. Actually, one of the customers gave me my first real business opportunity. This is how I got into business. And it wasn't really looking for it. One of the customers used to turn up in her Porsche. She was a 50-60-year-old woman called Trisha. And she used to come and dine with her lady friends, wine. And like, it was like a small restaurant, a 30-40 seater, right?
Mm.
She gave me a business card and they like slipped it through the kitchen. Want to market's amazing. We love it. Your food's amazing. We should talk. Wink, wink. Right. And I felt really naughty to my bosses because I was like, what does that mean? Okay, that's missing. So anyway, I called her and she was an entrepreneur. She had a number of venues in South London. And that was really exciting for me. So she said, we should do business together. And that was my first opportunity to launch my own restaurant. So 2 years later, we had 3 different venues. And that was my own physical business. She got all the wet drink sales. I got all the food sales. And at 23, 24, I was running 3 little restaurants in South London, Clapham and Balham and so on. So actually my business journey started there. But then I hit a little bit of a challenge. 3 venues, 3 different locations, small, medium-sized businesses, but I was making probably more cash than I've made ever in my life, but nothing to change the dial massively. I can afford a holiday, right? But then I was like, how do I take this to the next level? And this, I'm going to really go back. This was around 2006, right? So the internet had been through the dot-com boom and bust, which I'd watched and I didn't have a clue what it was. I was using AOL internet and really basic stuff. That's all that was there then, right?
Yeah.
I sound really old now. And then I was like, that's fascinating. And after the boom and bust, I was like, is it over? Is that it? And it wasn't. People were adopting and the internet speeds were getting better and people were starting to trust it more. It just took time, right? It took literally for another 5 or 6 years to really start picking up. And I said, I want to be in that zone. And that's where my voucher codes come from. I just thought, how do I go from chef, which is not really scalable, physical restaurants, relying on physical staff and, like seats was the maximum capacity of money you can make versus a digital business that was super scalable. So I decided, I think I first launched a small e-commerce business. Like, so it doesn't just go boom, boom, boom. Look at the journey's gone from the chef to small little restaurant entrepreneur to launching my first digital business, which was my first step into, I need to learn this. I need to throw myself in and literally learn, read, research, test. And that's what I was doing, becoming a little marketeer, customers, doing SEO, doing email marketing, stuff like this. And then that's where I discovered the business model for my voucher codes, which instead of it being a consumer end-to-end with a product, e-commerce, hard business, I become a middleman, a platform, a marketplace. And it was a marketplace for coupons. And the concept was really, really simple. We gather all the best coupons on the internet and we work with retailers via affiliate marketing to make introductions. And at that time, retailers loved it because retailers were paying massive bounties to bring people online and giving massive discounts, giving massive commissions to me and giving massive bounties of discounts, big discounts to get people to register and shop online. Even early Amazon was giving great discounts then. And that's really where the business started. So yeah, 2006, literally, and you mentioned 300, literally that was right. I outsourced the first MVP, really rough website to India on like a platform like freelancers.com or whatever it was. And, that's how I got started. Remember, I was a total untech savvy person. So if that's how I got started in business, just by taking a little bit of risk, taking the step, breaking that mold and saying, really assessing my life, go, do I want to stay in this restaurant world? It's good. It's comfortable. I'm doing well. I could launch another few, but it wasn't scalable. I wanted something that I thought, if I build this and I open it, the world, literally a website can be visited by billions of people, right? That was what the concept such excited me to think, if I really get it right, it could just break out, there's no glass ceiling. And that was the thing that really excited me. So scalability is, I think, quite important for anyone making a decision if they've got super big ambition.
Yeah. Damn, that's an inspiring story. It sounds to me like you had the right personality, the right drive, you're the right driver, but for a while you were in the wrong vehicle, essentially. And it wasn't until you swapped from that Ford into the Ferrari until then you could really take off and race. And that, I feel that's a very common mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make. They're just in the wrong market, essentially. This is a quick message to tell you about my company, Alpha AI. We built Lisa, the world's first AI-powered recruiter who screens candidates for you on autopilot. You can make your recruitment process 10 times faster, 90% lower cost, and significantly improve the candidate experience, all with our AI agent for hiring. Learn more at welovealpha.com or click the link below in the description. And now, back to the episode. What other common mistakes do you see early stage founders make? Because you've met with thousands of them, you've invested in hundreds of them. Like, what are the common things that you see happening over and over again which cause people to fail?
Yeah, I like your analogy of you're in the wrong vehicle. I think that's perfectly right. So all the examples I've just give you were really me putting my full energy. I wasn't no expert. I was learning on the job, but I felt like I'll put in more hours than most, right? And I think you're halfway there if you're willing to learn. So I think that's really important. And I think I talked about quite quick iteration from one business, e-commerce, and then going to this. There was failures along the way, by testing stuff. So I think that's super important. Try stuff and really assess if does it feel like it's working? Is it external forces? Is it internal forces? Is it just the wrong product market fit? Should you rip up the concept and do something completely different? I think but some people stay in stuff for too long. And I think that's what you've just maybe alluded to in the wrong vehicle. So you've certainly got to get into something scalable, but some people overthink that. It's like, I can't start something as big as my ambition because to start, maybe the first piece doesn't look like the final destination or the final, but maybe launching a mini part of it and getting that bit right and to generate revenue and then expanding out. Some people I see a lot of people over engineering, especially if they're bootstrapping, and it's like, well, I can't do that because it's this big and I've not got the time, resources, or money. But you can start in a sector, an area, a slight piece of it, and just start and iterate. So I guess the other thing tied to that, one of the things that frustrates me the most is people are over-engineer it. It's very tied to what I just said, and they'll have the end vision. It's like, I think there's 100 memes about this where founders just tweak the product before it's even launched. And I think you've got to get the MVP out. I'm a big, bold person. Get it out, get your customers, and listen and adapt to them, because sometimes I see founders spend it. I talked to a founder recently and they spent 12 months and a lot of capital building a product, and they launched it and no one used it. And that's 12 months of your life. And it's also most of your bloody money you had, which is madness. And I understand some products are that complicated, but most people are overcomplicated it in their brain, and you can launch a very slither version and get 5 friends and network and neighbors or office workers or whatever to start using it. And I think that's the best way. That's what I did. My website and MVP was utterly terrible. I've got a photo of it. Really, it was rough as, but it worked, and we iterated it, and it worked better, and by the time it was making $1 million in revenue, we'd iterated 3 or 4 times, proper iterations, rebuilds, right? Because it wasn't fit for scale. But isn't that £300 the best £300 I ever spent? And maybe I spent other £300 and they all got lost and wasted. But you've got to try, right? So I think let me see if I can think of any other reasons. AI is such a big opener for people now. And I've talked about 2006, and I built my business between 2006. I sold it in 2014. It seems like a different era. It was manual. We had a big army of developers. We had an army of admin people collecting all the coupons and codes and all of the above. It was quite a manually heavy business. We used the international marketplace. I was sourcing cheaper labor from Eastern Europe because you have to keep the cost down. And, we had a very international team. I think we had a little developer team in India, whatever worked for the business. That's what founders can work with. But I think you've really got to move forward and make stuff happen. I think a lot of people hold back. And I also, I guess, well, I'm talking about bootstrapping here. A lot of founders don't start because they're like, everyone's in a day job. You've got to put a roof over your head. You've got to put food in your mouth. And I'm like, you know how many hours are in the day? You know, delete your Netflix, delete TikTok. Like genuinely, so many people waste time, whatever, YouTube, right? And you don't get wrong, YouTube and all of this stuff can be really educational. Like the holy grail of learning stuff super quickly, wonderful. But if you're death scrolling and wasting time while also telling yourself, why aren't I successful? Why can't I be like that? You know, you've got to do stuff. Like honestly, all day, night. If you haven't got dark circles under your eyes, you're not trying. And literally, because I used to work for myself in the years of them businesses, I was working from home, and literally there wasn't a clock. It was literally work until it was done. Most of the time I'd sit in my PJs on the computer until my eyes closed, right? Literally until I was exhausted, and I would do it again the next day. And genuinely, in the early years, I think I was successful because we did more than our competitors. I wasn't smarter. I wasn't better. We did more. We worked twice as much as them. I did twice as much energy on marketing. And that's what break away. Once you break away, you get the momentum. I think that's super important. And I guess work ethic. This is a big one because I still have this, I call it semi-old-fashioned view. But I think it's a right view. If you've got to win, there's no 9 to 5 here. It's not even no 9 to 7. It's you know, you've got to juggle your life, and I'm not going to push anyone into mental breakdown territory. But if you really want it, especially in the early years when it's you and whatever your product is, you've got to put it all in. Because if you look back and it didn't work, if you can't say to yourself, did I try my best? Did I really give it my all? I couldn't look at myself in the mirror or in the eye if I didn't say I really did, you know?
Yeah, I think the points that you're making, they seem to echo what the most successful entrepreneurs in the world constantly say. It's not a coincidence this happens. Like your first point on building an MVP and just getting something shipped, getting something released, and then iterating on it afterwards. I mean, Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn says that if you're not embarrassed by your first release, then you've released too late. And then on like working like 9 to 5, Michael Dell was once asked, you know, what hours do you work, Michael? And he said all of them. Like every minute, you know, I wake up in the morning, I go to bed and I'm typing an email, I fall asleep and I wake up and I finish the email and I click send and then I go back to work. And that's not for everybody, right? But if you want to get into this game, then your competitors, some of them are going to be doing that. So you're probably going to lose. So like, if you're not willing to do that, just don't start. Like, save yourself the headache, save yourself the pain. Just go and do something, you know, easier and different. And there's no problem with that. That's just a you thing, right? But don't get into this game if you're not willing to really get in the arena and do what it takes to win.
I fully agree on that, totally. And you know, it's not new knowledge there. And you know, also I enjoy it. Like I really get a thrill from it. It stimulates my brain. It gives me but it's not all wonderful. My day job and what I do now, full of stress, full of problem, full of drama, full of firefighting, right? But at the end of the day, I feel like at the end of the week, even Friday, right? We're like, okay, we resolved that, we sorted that, we started the wheels in motion in that. I feel literally, I was exhausted this week, and I'm like, you know, I've got myself a little glass of wine. I don't drink very much, but one little glass of wine, chill on a Friday. And I was like, it's been a hell of a busy week. I'm a bit exhausted. I feel tired. I can't wait for that little lie-in on a Saturday morning, which I think I've earned. And hell, it's been productive, right? And that gives me so much joy and drive. Even when you're in the deepest hole of the biggest problem of your life, it feels like a big win. Many little wins give me such euphoria, mini euphoria moments during the day that I'm very good, my brain, of forgetting the bad stuff. You know, and I fix it and move on, you know, and I don't drag myself down and worry about that, or I don't fret about what bad stuff might happen. Loads of bad stuff. There's going to be mistakes, there'll be errors, there'll be complaints all along the journey, right? And you've just got to focus. Doesn't mean you'd ignore it. You just don't bog yourself down on it. And sometimes, like even in MVP in business, sometimes my team will say, well, if you launch it too quickly, if it's not working, you'll get complaints and yeah, and I'm like, I'm ready to deal with that, because I'll explain to people, we're getting it out there and moving it. So work with me and we'll improve it. Isn't it just like a mindset and how you deal with stuff versus holding stuff back? And, you know, the same as what I said a minute ago, really important, just a mindset.
Let's talk about investing a little bit. So in 2015, you founded Fuel, which is now one of the UK's leading venture capital companies. So you've invested in hundreds of companies, including unicorns like Paddle, which are now valued in the billions. I mean, you've kind of achieved that level of success both in investing and business, which most people, they like hit the lottery if they got one of those right. But like to get both of them right, it's like jackpot, right? So what advice would you give to founders, I guess people like me who are trying to raise capital for their business? You know, they have a startup, they built a product, you know, it's successful, that it's growing, but they're trying to raise more cash. What advice would you give to people that are kind of going through that fundraising process?
Yeah, so like I'll go back to the journey I told you a little bit earlier. When I built my first digital business or even the restaurant, I didn't really know investors existed. Honestly,
this is what's so crazy about it, because like it was like you bootstrapped it for the majority.
I didn't know what an angel investor was. Honestly, if you have never come across that in my sheltered Liverpool world, like as a chef, right? Like, how are you supposed to know? That wasn't my circle, right? So it was like, so what I'm about to tell you now is there's a world of opportunities more than ever now. So whatever your business idea, if it's scalable and interesting and has real potential, there may be an investor out there for it. So your specific question was on VCs, but I'll mention angels are normally the place where you start. It might be friends and family. You know, you might have a rich uncle or someone grandma who might be able to start you off, you know, something like this. Friends, whatever, network, business colleagues, like work colleagues, whatever it may be, are always a good starting point. And, you know, people will buy into an idea. And I think I always ask founders to do more than an idea, because I just say it's so easy to put together a pitch deck. It's easy to get. I can put together 10 with a little bit of AI, and I couldn't do that a couple of years ago. Like, it's crazy, right? So like there's so many there's so many reasons not to start and not to iterate something. And don't tell me you don't know your market and you can't do market analysis. You've got AI, and I didn't have that when I started, and neither did most of the giant tech companies in the world when they started. So boy, have you got a great advantage today. So really do your homework, prepare, because I think investors early want to see, number one, the fire. Like, remember, I was the most unqualified person, but I had the fire, I had the tenacity. I will research stuff, I will do my homework, I will put together a clear plan. You've got time. Impress them, blow them away with your knowledge and experience. Even though if you're not qualified in that space, it doesn't mean you can't get knowledge and experience and understanding, right? Don't be like too top level about it. I see scrappy, and you know, I don't mind scrappiness in startups and rushing ahead forward. That's good, but in preparation, when you're asking for someone's money, I think it's important to put the time and effort in and make sure you really do it. Also, put the time and effort into the person. You know, cold blast and outreach to any of these angels or whatever you might want to do, probably not really appreciated. They're going to receive hundreds and hundreds. Take a bit of time, like you've took a bit of time, find out about me. You've done your research, right? It's not hard. Find out, connect to them, just make it a little bit personal. That's going to do really, really well just to get you in the door. Go and meet people for coffee. You know, even if you don't ask for money, don't go with your begging bowl. Have a conversation. Ask for their advice. You know, by the way, I'm doing this project. Can you give me some advice? How did you do it? What did you do? Because you go ask them advice, they'll say, "Oh, that looks really interesting. That'd be fascinating." You know, sometimes the conversation can turn. So specifically, I'll move the conversation to VC, like you asked. VCs, and I can't talk for all of them, are normally looking for much bigger visions, because VCs need much larger returns. They invest a pool of investment, and they're really looking for outsized returns. So, you know, versus an angel might look for just mediocre return. Even my exit that you've talked about wouldn't really be VCable. It's a okay result, but it's not a story that could have, you know, so, but that was okay. I didn't raise the capital for it. So really be prepared to think bigger. Be prepared to really go for, like we talked about a second ago, real market leader. You've got to really win in the market. Is the market big enough? Is the opportunity big enough? What's your unfair advantage? Whether it's you, whether you haven't got an unfair advantage, but guess what you can do? You can put together a team. And sometimes founders are like, yeah, but it's just me and I have no money. You know what? You've got charm. You've got tenacity. You can go and convince people. You can go and convince people at the biggest companies that they'll be your advisor. You can give them potentially a little bit of equity, rewarding them for work they're going to do. Not all on day one, but, convince them. Because if you can't sell, I'm giving you an example, you can't sell. If you can't convince the investor that you can sell with nothing but an idea, I'm not going to buy into, but I'm not going to invest into you. So I'm really looking for signs, whether it's for this business model now, or whether you mentioned Paddle, Christian, the founder. I met him at a hackathon when he was 18, right?
Wow.
He's real. I hosted this hackathon. That's how I found him, right? And
okay.
he lived in Corby. He'd come all the way to London. And firstly, like at the beginning of this podcast, you talked about founders and young entrepreneurs and all this are your type of audience. That's my type of audience, and that was the type of audience in that room. And I pinched myself for a second because we talked about the 9 to 5, and I was like, oh my God, we've got people on a Friday night in my office. It was huge, like 200 people, right? And it was like in my office, coding, hacking, entrepreneurs with techies, all building innovation. And I'm like, they're my type of people, sleeping in sleeping bags with pizza boxes around them. Most people weren't sleeping. They were up all night on Red Bull, right? And I was like, they're my type of people because their peers are out partying in London getting drunk. And that's okay to have fun occasionally, but this is their fun. This is what they've chose to do at the weekend. They're builders, they're innovators. And the reason I mention that's the circle of people you mix with. Right, I attracted them people. I found a unicorn founder, right? You want to mix with these type of people, but at these events, you can pull together a team. You can pull together a concept, all for free in a weekend. There's a lot of these events that go on. So I would say VCs are really looking for more than a solo founder nowadays, the package. So look for a team. You can do all of this with zero cash. And also, I would say, the biggest thing, and this is a little bit more controversial, traction or no traction. If you have traction, I promise you, many more VCs will be more interested. Doesn't mean it's the only way. You can do it on a concept, but your concept's got to be super good, and you've got to prove why you've got to give utter conviction and any evidence you can or anything of why you can deliver, because people are risking their cold hard cash on you, and if it fails, they look bad. They've got to tell people that they've invested into them. So I would say really, really important to prove that. But let's talk a little bit about traction, if that's okay. Traction can have many forms. It can be a wait list. It can be, we've got an LOI. An LOI doesn't even have money on it. It's just a letter of intent. If you build this product, this will be interesting for us. This is evidence that you are a good salesman or woman. This is super evidence to me. So anyone that sits on the hands and says, well, I didn't raise money, I did that, you didn't, I don't think you did enough. You've got to be building the story, and every week there on in, the story can get better. I've said no to some investors I said no to some founders in the past, and then I've invested later because week later, month later, 2 months later, they've come with something else. They haven't stopped. They haven't given up. They've continued and gone, well, you said I didn't have this. Well, I've done it. I didn't have that answer. I look at the answer I've got now. I've researched it. And actually what I found is this. And, that impresses me. So a no is never a no long term, especially if you can bring some commercial traction. It's not always possible, but think outside the box.
Yeah. It's like the difference between somebody that just talks about doing something and somebody that really, really, really will not stop until they achieve what they want. And they need to sometimes piss people off. They sometimes need to break down some doors, but you can't make an omelette without cracking a few eggs, basically, can you? You really, really need to do the extraordinary things to get an extraordinary outcome and return.
Until someone said no. But honestly, until someone said no, don't give up. You've just, the example you just give is, you might piss people off along the way because maybe you're too much, right? but be very respectful. If someone goes, no, I'm not interested, leave me alone, go to the next one. But a lot of people only ask once. I found this in life. Do you know what I'll tell you? In my inbox, it's smashed. You don't even, we're going to embarrass ourselves now. I might actually show you, right? Just for a bit of fun, right? We all want to look at this number, right? And this isn't embarrassing, it's a bad thing, but it shows when you're a VC and you put your email on the internet and, but I have my team filtering our deal flow. Deal flow comes into our website, but that's how bad my can you see that?
Jesus, yeah, that's insane, man. That's insane.
It's 83,000 unread, right, over the last 10 years. That's right, and that's not something I'm proud of. It's a mess. I'm not inbox zero because I can't be, because I'm doing the activity with my team, but I skim read my inbox and I forward the important stuff. There's probably a lot of newsletters and crap in there, right? Which is maybe I should spend this weekend clearing it all up. But the point is, it doesn't give me anxiety because I manage my inbox week by week. And when I spot something good, I glance at it a lot. That's unread, right? But if I see a deal, I will open it. So that's probably not deals, right? And if you put a deal via our website, that'll be read by, we've got a team of 8 investors. That's why it's important not just to send it to Ray, and don't just send it to me on LinkedIn. Send it to me and everyone else on the team. The example we've just said, until you get a no. No one in my team is going to go, we all received that deal, we're not invested. It doesn't work like that. Just you need the second. And what I was about to say about my inbox is, you know what? You know who gets the most responses to my inbox? If someone follows up. Because it's I get a re, and I'm like, it must be important because they followed up, because everyone else only sent me one. So they'll normally jump to the top of my inbox. They'll get me at that prime seconds when I'm looking, and there's a better chance of an engagement or a response or something. So the example you've just give is probably the best piece of advice. Don't give up and be pushy. Ask people for stuff. Ask them for an introduction. Ask them for advice. Ask them to be part of your company. Ask them to be an advisor. Build a dream team, right? All part of it.
Yeah. I mean, I can speak firsthand. You invested in my company. You're the lead investor. And the way that I was able to do that was I asked 2 of your portfolio founders for introductions on the same day. So it was hey, everyone, check out this guy. Had the first call. I followed up with a personalized video message that I made for one of your team, and then just kept following up every single week essentially until we were able to close the deal. I imagine if I just cold emailed without doing the extra effort, I wouldn't have ever heard back.
It would have been an inbox with a lot of people, and we sometimes the best ideas just don't stand out. Unfortunately, the formats we have in the world of an email and a web form, and you get to write a paragraph, it's a little bit bland. Like you literally have most of them. I glance at their overview, their little elevator pitch, and it hooks me or doesn't hook me. And that's me. We have a team dedicated, putting more time than I am, but I'm a busy guy. I glance at stuff. If someone messaged me on LinkedIn and they're lucky enough to get into my inbox, because LinkedIn's maximum connections of 30,000. No, I can't connect to anyone else. Very strange. Reid Hoffman. I don't know. Have you interviewed him? You should do. I know he doesn't know it anymore, right? But we need to fix that. That's madness, because someone like me needs to. I don't want connections, but I need to connect for them to contact me most of the time. Which is so. Founders probably a bit upset why they're not connected with me. I can't. I'm limited by LinkedIn, right? But if you do end up in my inbox or somewhere, you can still premium. I'm sure they can land in one of my inboxes. I have to skim glance. I did a post the other week about deals, and we are always looking for deals, right? And when I do post, we will get hundreds of submissions. Sometimes globally, we don't really invest in India. Sometimes we'll get them, but we will filter, and we're investing in about 4 to 5 deals a month. It's quite a lot. Steadily throughout the year, and seasonally at the beginning of the year, Q1, we'll invest in 20 or 30. Like sometimes there's a lot more activity around there. So I would say be patient. And I also, if you've not had success with VCs, back to the one of our core questions, don't give up, like I've said, and don't feel if you haven't had responses, go back a few months later, resubmit. You never know who's going to read it. I like your strategy of making sure it's seen. And you use an example of 2. There's no reason you couldn't use an example of 10, and you could have done it again a week later and get a week later, because until you get a no, and most VCs don't respond with a no, it just lands in an inbox, and they'll be active and come to you if they like it. So if you haven't got a no, how do you know it's been read, right? And until it's a no, well, that's just one investor. Guess what? There's hundreds more. thousands more. So don't give up and never take it as a no. Not everyone's a fit for everything, right?
Yeah. So we've talked about AI a couple of times throughout this episode, but let's finish up by going a little bit deeper into that. So obviously I mentioned that you recently invested in my company, Alpha AI. Why did you do that? Why are you investing in AI companies that are disrupting traditional industries?
Because we have to, because it's the new tech revolution, right? I've never been more excited by a tech revolution. I think I alluded to the previous tech revolution, which was in my lifetime, the age of the internet, and the dot-com boom and bust, right? That was really the first wave. We've had the big wave in between, but this is taking it on another level. I literally get so excited for founders today if they can utilize AI, the tools that are launching and improving by the day at a rapid rate. They can be superhuman. They can achieve, in my opinion, more than anyone else has. So specifically about you, I'll tell you a slight truth. We don't normally invest in much talent tech or recruitment tech. We don't. We've just seen so much of it, right, in our lives, so much. So, and a lot of products are not changing the dial big enough. The nice to have, little much, in our view. Right. And when we see your business, it really excited us because you were utilizing a new technology to do an age-old problem. And actually, I'd say your first iteration of your product today fixes a big problem, but actually your end vision is absolutely huge. And that's what's important to us because we're a VC. We maybe the first iteration of your product, nice size business, could be bigger than what I sold my company for. Good success. No one's dismissing that. But actually, to go for the big one, if I achieve that and achieve that, we may become this, which will be ubiquitous in this sector. So times are changing. I've personally experienced the challenges your business fixes. And it was you landed in our inbox at a good time, and you got attention. And I also like the tenacity. The stuff you've done to get in front of our team is also really important to us because I don't want a founder that isn't chasing up. If you're not chasing up with your VCs and you're not really hungry, how do I know you're chasing up with your customers? And that's what conversion looks like. And and I bet during the communications back and forward, we don't have a fixed rule on this, but I'll give you an indication of a bit of psychology, probably what other VCs look as well. When we ask you a question, when we ask you to get some more details, document, or you will have whatever that back and forward looks like, it's really telling for me, even though you're a busy founder, everyone applying, if that takes too long to come back, that starts to be a bit of a warning sign for me. If 2-3 days, wow, because that's not hot. That's not strike while the iron's hot. If I was a client, you've got me in a hot period, and then I'm seeing 3 other competitors, and you're diluted, and I don't even remember which product was which. That's how life works. So move quickly. I'm not just encouraging this, but if I see your name, if I'm looking at you as a deal, and we look at many deals or whoever it may be, and I see you ping up at 10, 11 o'clock at night or whatever, 6 a.m. in the morning, whatever it is, I'm thinking he's like us.
Yeah.
That founder's like us. I'm awake because I'm seeing it. Or I go, actually, I think literally a founder messaged me this morning saying, oh, wow, I was LinkedIn because I was clearing my LinkedIn last night before bed, right? The joys of a Friday night. And literally going through all the messages. Oh, wow, you messaged me at 11:11. Hopefully it's a lucky sign. And it was 11 p.m. And he's probably nice that I'm doing my stuff at 11 o'clock, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're recording this on a weekend right now. You got to do what other people are not willing to do in order to get the things that, yeah, exactly right. Okay, so just lastly on AI, obviously you're making a lot of bets right now on some really exciting hot AI companies. And I guess the ultimate vision for AI is AGI, ASI, some kind of super intelligence, which could completely transform the world. And some people are completely torn. Some people are all full believers that this is going to happen, and we're going to have some digital sentient overlord type situation. Other people think it's going to be, ChatGPT is going to hit a limit. That it's not going to quite progress past ChatGPT 5 or 6, and it's going to start to slow down. What's your view? Do you think in the next 10 years we'll have some type of AGI?
I don't keep myself up at night about this topic. I'll tell you what I try and do. I try and make everyone around me wake up.
Yeah.
Because I don't think, and I'm talking about employees, I'm talking about founders, I'm talking about investors, I'm talking about my family, and I'm saying, you're not using AI. I know, you know, that sounds crazy for someone like on a tech-related business podcast, but a lot of people are not. You know, and the base level, like a lot of the world are not. Like, you know, I think I think on LinkedIn this week, I seen thousands and thousands of optimizations associated with AI reductions of various companies. You know, I'm not being extremist saying jobs are going to be lost en masse, but I think AI is going to do an awful lot of stuff. And I keep on using the words be superhuman. Because if you're good at AI should be the only thing you care about right now. Become an expert. You can. All the information's online, right? I advise everyone to become the best they can. Founders, employees, even if it's not even your job, your own time, learn, test, research, watch videos, whatever, play with it, because you need to be on that curve, because the people at this end of the curve are extinct. Genuinely, very easy. They're the ones being cut. The people on the early to mid curve, at least they're looking at it. And the people on the advanced curve, they're building hundreds of millions of value, billions of value, founders moving faster than ever before. So I am excited. I do believe the technology is going to continue to accelerate. I mean, I've never seen a period in technology like the last year where I've physically seen such massive strides forward. Like the simple stuff it can do is mind-blowing, right? And I don't even think we're there yet. You know, it's going to get personalized. It's so good. So fascinated on your view, if you don't mind. I shouldn't really turn the questions, but you're very much in this world. What's your view on the same question?
I'm very much with you in that I don't spend a lot of time anymore thinking too much about this stuff. I've just got so much going on with trying to build my own company and my own family and keep my own health and sanity and everything, and you know, stay hardworking and positive and everything. So I'm you know, very much focused on myself from that point of view. But I from time to time I do think about it, and I think it's probably inevitable that that it will get to the point very, very soon where it will completely transform everything. We'll enter a new type of reality, essentially, where it will probably be more progress will happen in a day than used to happen in a year. And you know, that's what, when we hit the exponential growth curve, I mean, we are like really here right now, and it's about to get fucking crazy, like right now with everything happening. And I think most people don't realize that we are living on the edge of the future right now. So I just try to do exactly what you said, and I just try to stay as up to date as possible, you know, live on the cutting edge. Every time there's a new tool out, I jump on it instantly, and I'm testing it out and seeing how I can apply it to my business, because that's ultimately what's going to allow you to really, really win and have massive outsized returns, as opposed to everybody else. You know, if somebody's riding around on a horse and car and you've got a Tesla or a Ferrari or something, then you're just going to smoke them. And this is the digital equivalent that's happening right before our eyes. It's going to change everything. We can embrace it and win, or we can ignore it and get left behind like the dinosaurs did.
Do you know that final line, what you've said is really important. I was about to say something similar. There's going to be extinction events. Like, and by that, I mean companies we know today. I'm thinking travel, right? The way we book travel is so archaic. It's a cluster of madness. If I want to go somewhere, I'm on Skyscanner, I'm on this, I'm on booking.com. It's a nightmare. And you know what? Something's going to do that for me. I think it already can, but users are not going to do it the same way. Right, like I use AI to organize trips. It doesn't book it for me yet. It's not going to be long, right? But you know, to organize trips more than I ever done. And I did a post that was very controversial a couple of weeks ago about is Google on the downfall? And they're never going to go. I don't think they're going extinct. It's more than just a search engine. I'm not naive to that. My point is search in that direction. Because all the behavior I see is straight to the AI, and the AI is becoming richer. My ChatGPT is now adding images into the results, and it didn't do that last week.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
literally, it's throwing them in and making it visual for me. That's how quick it's updating, and it's making it a richer experience. I recently went on a weekend break somewhere, and you found the best restaurants there, and I did this, and I found all the tourist sites, and then then I already found a hotel that does this, this, and this, and this. I didn't need to do hours of research, and that is, I'm at 1.0 of AI use, but it's not. I'm talking about simple user cases here. That's why I love what you're doing in your business, because if I say recruiters is one of the oldest fashion industries in the world, it's a big industry, and a lot of people make a lot of money, high fees, big job, talent, it's huge, right? Whether it's in companies or recruitment agencies, whatever it be, but it's being disrupted. And if you are not utilizing technology, yours and others, as a stack, you are so far behind the curve. And as an employee, if you're working in an agency or you're working in a corporation in talent and you are not embracing these tools, you will be the next people that Microsoft just lay off 7,000 people recently, right? I read, I don't know if it's true, even the head of AI. What? Right.
They did. Yeah. No one's safe. Yeah,
I won't go into that one. But, you've got to make sure you are up to speed using the technology, because you can be superhuman. You can do it way better than before. You can do it without bias. You can do it all, crazy what you can do in your section. And I genuinely think the amount of businesses that are leaders today will be disrupted. And that's why I'm so excited to be investing in you and all of the startups, because when I get excited, I'm like, I can see that way is going to be the future, because it's seamless. The way we do stuff today, I've just used an example of booking travel. I could use a million other things we all do regularly, which are better with the internet, like the 10 times, 100 times better. That's why the billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar companies, but I don't see them innovating very much. And I think the new way is going to be with AI, and whether that's rappers, whether that's businesses spinning out and doing it, blowing people's socks off with how efficient, personalized in every vertical. That's exciting, no? Exciting.
Definitely. It seems like every company will be replaced by an AI first version of that company. Like if you look at products and software, a traditional legacy SaaS type business, if there's a way to build that from the ground up using large language models, which is 10 times faster, 90% lower cost, you can pass that on to the consumer and it can be just a slicker, better, smarter product, then these companies are going to get disrupted by the upstarts. But not just tech, services. When you have agents now, like what we're building, that can do the same job as a human, you can pay for an outcome, but you can get the outcome better, smarter, faster. Then the whole software is not just going to eat like traditional businesses, it's going to completely eat the world, and AI is going to now eat software, to use the A16Z quote. It's mind-blowing the direction that we're heading in, but I'm super grateful and excited to be alive right now at this time, building in this space, backed by people like you, because we have all of the momentum and the wind and the ocean at our back. We just need to work insanely hard and power through to get to that victory line, because a few many trillion-pound companies are going to be created off the back of this, and Europe's never had one yet. So the first ones that are going to do it are going to be probably in the next couple of years, somebody building some kind of agent, somebody building some kind of AI first business, and it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time.
Brilliant, great. Thanks for the session today. Thanks for the discussion. Fascinating.
Awesome.
And good luck with the business.
Thank you. And for people that enjoyed this, LinkedIn's the best place to check out more of your stuff. Yeah,
definitely follow me. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. You'll see a variety of posts, and generally that I use a bit of AI, of course, for my posts, but the concepts and what I want to talk about comes from here. So engage. I read all my comments, right? That's best place. And if you want to send us a deal, fuel.ventures.
Awesome. Thank you.
Have a great weekend. We finally got to it.
Thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you click the follow or subscribe button wherever you're watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.